I'm going to be, you know, I brought you, this is a grafted one here. So that's the whole point of this program today, is if you don't want to wait 30 years to get a trunk like that, you know, just buy a $100 Ficus Microcarpa and do what we're going to do today. This one's grafted. So, and that's, you know, I've had that about 10 years, and it's starting to, you know, come along pretty good. So I'm going to be cutting these back, and anybody can take some cuttings if you want. This is one of my favorite species of ficus. I really like it. So this is a variety here that I bought in. I bought this tree in a 4-inch pot in either 1985 or 1986. It was a guy, the convention was in Fort Lauderdale at that time. I don't remember which year it was, but it was mid-80s.
It's the Reagan administration.
Yeah. So the guy had one that was probably, I don't know, this big as a showpiece, and then he had 100 little 4-inch pots he was selling for $10. We put a lot of money back then for a 4-inch pot, but it really looked good, and it grow fast, trunk up really good, and you know, the whole purpose of me getting it was so I could grow it out fast. Because, you know, even ficus, if you want a, you know, a 4 to 6 inch trunk on a ficus, you're talking, you know, 15, 20 years on just practically anything growing it in a pot. I mean, you can stick it in the ground if you're in South Florida and, you know, get something, you know, a lot faster. But, you know, up here, they just don't do that. You know, it's just, you lose half the year because it's, you know, it's cold and the sun goes down further towards the south. So this tree was in a 4-inch pot in the mid-80s. This Ficus Microcarpa exotica. That's what he called it, exotica.
Can you shrink those leaves down on that one as well?
No, it's a fast-growing ficus, and it doesn't shrink down. It's, you know, it's the top grower, as you can see. If you let the top go, it just grows up. It's really a fast-growing tree. So my purpose in getting it was so I could grow bigger trunks and then graft, and you know, in that amount of time. How many have I grafted? None of them.
I don't think it's back in the 1 pot either.
I put this here is a graft that I put on here 2 years ago, and then never finished it. So today I'm going to work on it some more. If anybody wants some, I'm going to cut this back hard. So if anybody wants cuttings off of this, you're welcome to them. Because you know, I'm not saying that. How long has it been since 1985? 30 years. You know, you don't need a 12-inch trunk to make a nice bonsai. You can grow a 4-inch trunk on this in probably 3 or 4 years. I haven't been able to get any of them. Green Island, the tiger barks, none of them will grow from root cuttings. But you can graft them. I got this here.
If you cut a limb off of it, it will lose its root.
Yeah, they're really easy. It's a ficus. I was here, this was about a month ago, taking some big ficus rubiginosus, put them from 20-gallon pots into bonsai pots. So I was pulling a Kevin. And I cut this root off, and it's got this, back where I cut it off, this is actually, you know, I looked at it, it's got this nice movement, it's got this big base under here where I cut it off the main plant. So this is actually upside down. Most root cuttings, the problem with most root cuttings is you get reverse taper because they start big and then it tapers toward the end of the root. So it was just a neat, you know, I held it up and I go, holy crap, that's a nice root. So I took and grafted this branch on. I didn't even know if it would work because I've never turned a root upside down. This is what really should be in the dirt, this part here, and what really should be, up here is down in the bottom of this pot. It's got a very nice base. So a month ago I grafted this onto there, and you see it's putting out new growth. I mean, that was a rank experiment, and it looks like it's working because it's putting out new growth. If it wasn't working, it wouldn't be putting out that scion would be drying up by now.
So what did you graft on? Is it the same as what the base?
Yeah, that's Ficus rubiginosa onto Ficus rubiginosa root.
It's the same on the same medium?
Yeah, most ficuses will graft together. The problem is that, this bark is completely different from this. This is tiger bark, and so if you're gonna grow a tree and then come out here and put things on the ends of the branches, you need to have something where the bark is similar. You would not put the tiger bark out here, even though it has smaller leaves, because you can have tiger bark branches out here and no tiger bark here. A lot of the big Ficus microcarpas are good for grafting like this, and the Green Island ficus. I really like Green Island ficus, and it's really hard to get a nice trunk on a Green Island ficus. So if you can find a nice Ficus microcarpa with a 6-inch trunk, you can graft. Because these leaves they're not the prettiest leaves. They're not like these. They're big and they're not dark green. So it wouldn't hurt to change the leaves, which is what we're going to work on today. We are going to put some grafts on here, and this is alcohol. So anytime that you're going to cut deep into a plant, which you do grafting, start out with clean tools. Like I said, anybody that wants to take some of these cuttings, you're welcome to them. And you see it's got some dead shit in here. It's like any fast-growing plant. It wants to grow fast, and there's nothing you can do with that. So it's a good tree to get a big trunk fast, but it's not a good tree to make a refined bonsai.
How old are the branches? Have you had those there for the duration, or a couple years?
I've cut big branches off of this many times. You see there's some big cuts back here. You really should take that out. And use this. It reacts just like any other ficus, except that it's really fast growing and it chunks up really nice. There you go. But it doesn't like to be refined. It just likes to grow fast. And that was the reason I bought it to begin with.
It's a diminishing return. When you have 2.5 acres of trees, it's impossible to refine them all to that show level. Just like that tree over there that's 40 years old, he has literally 1,000 trees that he's working.
Oh yeah.
He'll have 50 maybe that are show worthy, and then another 1,500 that need a couple years of refinement.
Do you have to worry about taking too much off?
No.
Especially not this time of year.
No, this time of the year.
Plus, he's let it grow. It's stored a lot of energy. It's got a lot of leaves, so when he does this, you know, it has a lot of stuff built up. If you kept trimming it real hard, it would really, you know, be detrimental. But this thing's going to be like, oh, thank you.
One of the first things that I, you know, actually changed the complete foliage on a tree was the crepe myrtle that Paul had. He had a Natchez crepe myrtle, and which is, you know, not good. He wanted a, you know, tree this size, and Natchez doesn't do that. So we brought it over, and we red grafted Chickasaw crepe myrtle onto it. And for 3 or 4 years, it would continue to put out Natchez buds, which he had to rub off. But after about that amount of time, they quit doing it. It's not going to grow. No, it got the point.
Maybe there was just enough foliage to support the trunk at that point.
Yeah, I mean, the Natchez is a fast grow. It's like this. It's a fast growing tree, and then you put, you know, Chickasaw crepe myrtle onto it, and the tree it died. You know, he was moving, and you know, shit happens when you're just too busy to deal with shit. You know, when I
It was the best crepe myrtle, best Chickasaw crepe myrtle I'd ever seen.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I was sorry to see that go. And so was he.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just, you know, shit happens. And,
I'll take the cutting that has no leaves on it.
Can you twist that so we can see the front, Mike, real quick?
it's gonna be the front.
There we go.
So, I'm going to start taking some.
So Mike, you've got some branches over there that are the same level. Would you be cutting those?
This?
No, up, straight up from where you just had your hand.
Oh, here?
Yes.
Yeah, that's high enough up to where I don't think it's gonna be too detrimental.
Gotcha.
So,
You can always cut it off later. Especially when that branch right to the top left gets a little fuller. That'd be a good time to do it.
generally, when you're grafting into smaller, softer material, but we're going right into the hard wood at this point, and I'm going to open it up a little bit. It didn't work out like exactly I wanted it. There we go.
See, if it wasn't in video, you would have done it right the first time.
So,
Video editing.
these cuts take a little practice. Ideally, you want to do one swipe on each. Just line up the and I generally like to use a product called Parafilm. There's another product you can buy some places. It's called grafting tape. They both work good, but I used up all my Parafilm and then I used up all my grafting tape. You got parafilm, so I think this will work just as good.
I have grafting tape if you need it.
Yeah, I think this will work. Basically, you just need to seal this so no water gets out, no water gets in.
Traps the moisture, right?
It keeps the water out, and it keeps the surfaces from drying so that they actually start growing together. That is the purpose of leaving some leaves on there.
So you keep moisture in that's there?
The moisture that's in the scion, you know, the cuts are together, so it keeps those cuts from drying out. This wire is basically just to hold the tape on, because if I had parafilm, it sticks to itself.
If the branch you're grafting to is big enough, can you use a drill bit to bore into it or no?
I'm taking a whenever you if you just take and make a slit in that, and then you take this.
You didn't take that chunk out of the middle on the first one, did you?
I did.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You take this and
Taking a little bit of the outer.
take a little bit of each side. This has a certain amount of thickness to it. So if you just slip this into that, just a slit, it widens it out, and you wind up with, you know, reverse taper. So I take a chunk out, and hopefully when it grafts together, it will, you know, not have a bulge there.
If you were to display this tree, what would you label it as?
Once it's grafted, I would label it as Ficus Microcarpa Golden Coin, because that's what it is. Doesn't matter what the base is.
Like to say, I don't think that's a golden coin trunk, or they would never think to notice.
We could say it's grafted.
You could say it's grafted.
Part of the illusion, though, is it's little leaves with a big giant trunk, right?
Yeah, it would take you 50 years to get a trunk like this on Golden Coin.
Well, it took 35 to get it with.
Yeah. Yeah, but this has been a big trunk for a long time.
Yeah.
And you're doing that so that it gives it more taper on each branch?
Well, this is just he's just attaching new foliage on it.
Right. I'm getting rid of the old foliage, which is crap for bonsai, and putting on foliage that is really nice for bonsai. In essence, you will have a tree that looks like this, that is on a trunk like that.
Are you going to do any scion grafting on any of these, or are you just going to go with the tips?
Depends on how much time we can run into. I brought these other tools. I could.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were going to be able to show those today or not.
What time is it? It's only 2 o'clock.
Yeah, it's,
Tightening
we're
that,
good.
how tight are you just to keep it in place?
You don't want to air. You don't want air in between that the two pieces.
Basically, yeah, it tightens the the scion in place, and it keeps the tape on there.
Okay, good.
This is called a scion. This is called the stock when you're grafting.
Right, the scion
S-C-I-O-N, scion.
is what you're grafting on.
And
Yes,
and that is
It's
what
the
again?
graft, and the other one is
the stock.
the stock.
What do you dip in your blade in? Again?
Alcohol.
There you go.
So it's-
So eventually you're gonna have both of them growing, right? Both types of trees.
No, you see that right there? That's actually a different. Where's the other grafted? Those are different. That's a different tree.
Right, but won't it start to sprout?
Earlier he was talking about it. He'll rub those buds off repeatedly. There, I have a
this
giant.
is grafted onto a different ficus, so at this point the other ficus at the base doesn't put out any shoots.
I got you.
And if it does, you take it off because you want all of its strength of this trunk to focus on the tighter foliage.
Now, are you just splitting that, or are you trying to get a chunk out of there?
If you can't get this, if you can't see it, we're gonna have video up on the Kawa website so you can see it in detail.
I am taking a chunk out of it.
Yeah, he's taking
Otherwise,
some
like I said before, it'll create a bulge there. So we don't want that, especially on these smaller little branches.
And by the way, everybody always wanting to learn something new. This is like one of those really nice techniques that not enough people practice, but it isn't terribly difficult, especially if you do it over and over again. You get to the point where you can get it pretty good. This is a fantastic, I mean, our crepe myrtles, all of our big crepe myrtles, this is great. Put a tighter species on there. Ficuses, I mean, there's so maples. There's so many different types of things you can do these with.
So,
Could you put a flowering, like say a crepe myrtle, onto a ficus?
no, absolutely not. The trees have to be compatible. So, as we've said, there's a lot of different aspects of tree growth that when you start grafting you have to take into account.
That's the same tree. That's the
These
same
are all
graft.
the same. Yes,
Right.
these were grown from cuttings, and that one and this one was like this. It was grafted onto a larger ficus.
What ficus species was it grafted onto?
That's that ginseng ficus. That,
Oh, it's a ginseng base on that.
yeah, and I'll tell you the secret behind that. These ginseng ficuses, you know, when you see them in Lowe's and Home Depot, I had never seen any as big as those were when I got them. They were as big as this pot, or you know, this big. You see that huge, ugly crap, you know, with these nice tops on there. And this guy dropped them off. He wanted me to sell them, and of course nobody would buy them. I mean, they weren't bonsai material. They were ugly shit. So he basically abandoned them.
He dropped them off at your place and drove away quickly.
Yeah, so I had these things that were just crap, you know. So I was in the greenhouse one day and looking at this crap, and you know, back there was this nursery in South Florida that put these green island ficuses in the ground probably 50 years ago, and for some reason it was a nursery that I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, and after I moved up here, a friend of mine found this nursery in Fort Lauderdale. It had about an acre of green island ficuses in the ground, trunks like this,
Wow.
And they've been there at that time for 30 years in the ground, staked up.
So this is how you are going to do a scion graft, lateral scion graft instead of a tip scion graft. What is the tool that you're using?
It's a Masakuni pine grafting chisel.
Super sharp. Do you stroke it in between your cuts or not so much?
No, it's sharp. See, I mean, it went right in. I wasn't even hitting it. It needs to be sharper.
What is your percentage of success with these grafts on average?
I usually get about 80%.
So would it behoove you to do a lot of plan Bs on each branch?
I will be putting more on. I'm going to wait and see how many of these take. And then, because a lot of these big branches, they just need more side branching.
Yes. Just like you're doing. That's why
Yeah.
I wanted you to do this video today. Awesome. Mike, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You have one last thing to say to the viewers?